Yes, I will. Okay, so we can edit this however we want. So it doesn't really matter what we say. What I'll do too is I'll notice if there's a little bit of a flicker in your connection, Rodrigo, I might get you to repeat something again just so it appears on the recording here.
Okay.
Yeah. So your loading up was obviously super slow over there.
Man, it was like crazy. Today when I woke up, it was just like, okay, 200 megabytes and we good to go. And I leave the computer turned 2 nights straight. So it's just like, okay, I'll leave the computer open, and I don't know. I have to call the company or something to they can upload in or make something the connection, because today, today even I was like looking something for internet. It was just like freezing, and then I was just like, I have an app called Speed Test Pro, and actually it was like doing like speed test and nothing. It was just like nothing. Zero megabytes uploading, downloading. So I think it's something with quarantine here. People are in the houses, so everybody's using internet, of course, and you need to have something to power up the receiving, and when you have to upload something. So I guess I have to call the company and do something about it.
Yeah. Well, thankfully you're coming through clearly now.
Okay. Yeah.
No problem at my end. How about yours, Greg?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's really good.
How far are you from the node where you are?
From the
meter and a half, 1 meter.
So you no.
Oh, hang on. What do you mean by the node?
You've got your fiber optic to a node, and then you've got copper from there.
We don't have copper. We're fiber optic to the house.
Oh wow! So you just pull good speeds all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm running a copper line that's like hundreds of meters long before it gets to me. So I'm like the last person, that gets it.
Yeah.
NBN on copper is not NBN. It's the same as ADSL too.
It's still a lot faster. It still is, but it's got some of the same hang-ups of ADSL.
Yeah.
One of the things they told me, just like have to get a cable for Ethernet sometimes. So that's good. Yeah. So that's maybe the next step. Buying one of these and Ethernet and
that's super fast when you do it that way.
Yeah,
we used that in China and in Brazil and in the States too. When you're doing that, it's just like super fast.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So
hey Rod, so I got a few questions, but Rod, what do you think? Why don't you kick us off?
Okay, mate, love the presentation because it was a practical example of what happens when someone goes right through a movement philosophy. And so you start to look into where a risk for an athlete might be and intervene at the spot that they need the most. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. It's basically saying it's not an ad hoc approach. You're systemizing the approach, able to pull out where the athlete has the problems and intervene there. Thought that was fantastic.
How many staff did you have, Rodrigo, to support you?
So the staff that we have, the first at the beginning were by ourselves because people didn't know anything about it, the system. So at the beginning it was 3 people doing sometimes 150 or 200 FMS and post FMS. But when the time goes by during the first year, we have the PTs that we teach FMS. And then at the end of the third year, I teach them SFMA. So that was just like in the third year, it was when everything started flowing better. So now we have all the staff with PT staff, FMS and SFMA, and the strength and conditioning staff doing FMS. And then we have each strength coach from each division performing FMS together with the PTs. So that was kind of cool seeing during the third year. But at the beginning, we're all us. And as the time goes by, we start to put in all the stuff from the club in there and they start doing it.
So you have, when you say it's only us, you mean there's only 3 people, yourself plus
2 strength coaches more that we are in the same project.
So all from Exos?
Like it would be like Red and Mike and you.
Okay.
So pretty much those 3 assessing of the club at the beginning, and then just like the PT doing the post FMS that we call there. And then when we move forward, we develop post FMS with something more, like they have muscle testers, so we can do something more prolific and more accurate in each one of the steps. And then we step out and we just like watch and see how they do and coach the coaches. So one of the things that we did all the time before we start screening everybody, we do like a round up and check everything again, so we can put everything in the same page. Because sometimes when you do the FMS and people doing the club, they start doing some changes, and we just try to put everybody on the same page, just in case. Sometimes we do that. We like to do that.
That leads to a direct question. There's going to be a variety of people who will watch this webinar long term. Some will be trained in the same systems that we are. Some won't be. Some will be partway through that training. And my question to you is, how did you get the club on board with this? Because someone can come in with our skills into another club without us.
And that is the question that goes with Greg about Italy. The main thing to have succeed in this kind of environments is when the head of heads, so that would be the owner of the club or the CEO of the club, they want to make a change, and they put that into the management directors, and they start looking for us, or they start looking for a season about that. So it's kind of like, give me a second. I'm gonna screen in Spanish. Lu, cerra la puerta, que tengo una cerra que está Greg, y estoy hablando con ellos y se escucha tu sonido. Cerra la puerta. Okay, gracias. That's it.
We can take that out, but I actually think
so subtitles. Honey, please close the door. Then I'm talking with the guys, and we can listen in the shower.
So it's not that kind of show.
And she was saying, I'm gonna do that. So that's it.
So what you said, Rodrigo, is if you don't have the absolute head of the head involved, it's probably not going to work.
It's not gonna work. There are things that I can speak right now where in another clubs it's working. It's because actually the head of performance or the head of sports science, but I would say the head of performance, decide to go that way, and he talk with the manager, or he talk with the owner of the club, and they're on the same page. Right. So when you propose that, and the people who are on top of you, they believe in that and they give you support, you can go down. If you are in the top and you are the owner of the club and you want to go that way, you talk and you convince to other people to go that way. But otherwise, he says, and I saw that just like when he's one guy opinion, one guy that he wants to go, maybe the strength coach from the first division, it's gonna. And I see failures too. I can mention failures too. We have here in Rosario one guy that he was doing that for 3 years, and he didn't have the support for the manager and strength coach from the first team. And they were blocking everything every time he wanted to develop that into the first team. So it's kind of complicated, but I think when you have the resource and you have the people that are in the same roof and they have the idea, that's pretty much more identified with high performance, and they follow that idea and they believe in the idea. Maybe at the beginning they don't know where they're going, but they start to see the changes, like we show with the audit. That's when they start to like clicking in and they start to convince themselves. It's pretty hard, but we can see from one side that it's working, and sometimes it doesn't work. And that is pretty much communication across the different layers that is composing a professional soccer team.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point you make, because in Lance's presentation, he had an analogy he used where he likes barbecue sauce, he likes chocolate sauce, and he likes Cajun sauce. But if you mix all of those sauces into the one ingredient at the same time, they're all going to cancel each other out. And that's effectively what you're saying as well.
Exactly. It's just like pharmacology. You need to know which medication you do and give each one of the stages. And I'm kind of, what I can see all the time with that organizations, and you guys saw it too, just like there are simple stuff that you add, but they work really well when you're doing it consistently. And I think that is the big deal. You don't need to bring, I don't know, the best encoders on the world. Just like you need to measure that guys with RPE, and they're really able to let the session flows every day in and out, every day in and out. and then you can put technologies on top of that. Let's say Kaiser or whatever you want to mention. But the main thing is like you create consistency across the month and the years and day by day. That's the hardest part. For example, we need to chase at the beginning the guys so they can perform FMS month and a half for the people they have some issues. Or when we have to retest, we usually test 4 times a year, every 2 or 3 months. We have a lot of competition, a lot of travels. So the thing was sometimes the organization was dealing more with, okay, what we're gonna do for the next week, next game with the players. So we have to chase everybody from the academy to the first team. Hey, we need to do FMS. Hey, remember, next week we're gonna do FMS. So it was a big deal, maybe also cultural, that Brazil is really different from for example, Germany. So we need to chase that up, but we see it working, and we see the progress. The thing that I like it more was to see the under 15 start doing like pillar preparation and start engaging what it means hip hinge, what it means to have a pillar, what it means to have side pillar, how you translate that into drillables, or in how you translate that with education to start doing mini bands, hip activation, just like learning what it means to be position power above acceleration and in a perfect pattern. So that was the name of the game for me, to see that in the Develop Academy and reflecting that in a few years, because actually there's a few players that are playing Champions League, and they learn that. And I saw that from under 18, under 19, and when they go to the first team. And that was pretty much something that I'm doing right now in an amateur club, but I think it's possible. It's possible in both scenarios.
So did you see that if you started it in those younger players, did you see the transfer of movement through performance through to skill?
Yeah. I didn't have the chance because right now the guys that at that time have 14, they're going to have 19 and 20. So I'm not going to be able to see, but I saw it when they have 16, 17 and 18, or 17, 18, 19. I saw that. So it was kind of cool, because like I told you, just like the guys that came from different teams and different ages, like all guys, they have pretty hard time to understand. And even through the process, they have injuries.
That's what I was leading with that question, was to say, did you notice that if you have someone starting that process from an early age, the guys who are coming in, say, the Division 1 at a later age, you actually have to regress them before you can progress.
Exactly. And we have a lot of problems with that, because they came from problems from hips, backs, mobility, instability, lack of strength, lack of running technique. And the other guys was just like that.
Yeah.
You can see they don't even EQ sometimes. And that was even better, because now the head coach or the manager can understand, hey, I can do more soccer on the pitch.
Absolutely.
They can work more faster. And that was pretty much the idea behind that. For me, the idea behind that, just like if you start with the boys when they have 15, when they have 20 and they're on the first team, guess what? You're going to have more time doing what you like, that is playing with the ball, because your warm up or your movement prep or your skills are going to be really faster to accomplish. We are not going to need a half an hour or 25 minutes. Maybe going to need 15 minutes, and it's going to flow everything in the session, and then you're good to go. And then you're going to see reflected that into the pitch.
Yeah, when I was doing that with my mixed martial arts school, I was like the coach, the performance coach, and also the therapist. It was a bit of a weird position to be in. But once we started that real movement base first, because I obviously came into the FMS world well after I'd started my coaching, we just found that because we were looking now for performance and movement and performance minimums, it just left so much more time for technical training, and the guys just got so good and started to win at a much, much greater rate. So the transfer was just so obvious.
Exactly. And you can see that in a soccer, where something that you guys can see, and maybe I'm pretty sure you guys saw it, just like soccer is playing with the ball. So the ball all the time is a regression from your movement patterns. So actually, when you play with the ball all the time, you're never going to reach the hip to go in the mechanics of absolute speed or even acceleration, because the ball is taking you to a pattern that is not functional. So it's kind of the switch that, for example, I say all the time, Roger Federer, when they switch the grip from backhand to forward, he doesn't even know. But the soccer players, they have a hard time because they were being with the skills all the time. So we need to teach that, and that is movement skills. And we need to go backwards, and we need to teach what it means to have the hip in 90 or 85 degrees. And we need to teach where it's being proper ankle position to perform the pattern. So for that, we need to know the parts, and we need to know how the parts are moving themselves and how they integrate into the brain, so they can change what they need when they change from passing the ball to running to an empty space. And that is switching the mechanics. And there is sometimes that players, they don't know that even they have. So when they start to learning that, and they are able in the mind and mindset to change that, and they don't even know they're doing, that's when the magic happens. And that will be the ultimate challenge. So they can switch from carrying the ball to running really fast in a good manner of the movement mechanics, to fill an empty space or to recover the ball. Mm-hmm. And that is something that you can see in the English Premier League sometimes, but it's pretty hard to see sometimes in good mechanics in soccer.
Okay.
I don't know. I would like to know the Greg's opinion.
First of all, outstanding description about the philosophy and how you implemented that into the club. And I took plenty of notes, and one of the notes that I had was, let me help to describe what I thought Rodrigo did very well when he answered Rod's question. So Rod was asking, how do you get that buy-in? And I wrote down a question. Why is a movement philosophy so important? Because you want to have to answer that question to the head coach, or to the head strength and conditioning professional, or to the owner of the club, or the managing director, or the sporting director, whatever title you give to this person. They're going to say to you, they're going to ask you, why is it so important? Tell me why I should believe you. And I think you answered it really well in two steps. Because we will never forget the skills of playing football, right? Because we started this game playing with the ball, and we will never lose those skills. And we probably won't lose the technical and tactical understanding of the game, but we will often forget the core fundamentals, which include movement, mindset, recovery, and nutrition. So if you don't implement a movement philosophy, you're at risk of losing the core fundamentals. And then you ask the question, all right, convince me why these core fundamentals are so important. And the answer relates to some longevity, but it also relates to the main thing, is that great players are built from a solid foundation of core fundamentals. And they have longevity that repeat those core fundamentals across years. So the answer to the question is, why is movement philosophy so important in a club that's already very, very skilled at football? And the answer is that you'll always remember how to play football, but you will probably forget core fundamentals. And the great players that stay in the game longest respect those core fundamentals, and that's why it's important. So eventually they're going to say to you, okay, what about the players who don't respect core fundamentals, who are no longer present? Someone like LeBron James, okay, not football, right? So LeBron James, I have heard a story that he scores 9 on the FMS. And you would argue that maybe he doesn't really need any corrections, because he's possibly the greatest player of all time, possibly. And that's because he can still shoot 40 or 50 points per game. And he's somebody that we would say has dysfunction on a movement screen. And we would also say that he is very, very good at functioning with that dysfunction. So he's a functional dysfunctional. And he has been able to stay in the game for a long, long, long time with that dysfunction. Now, I'm assuming that when someone said to me he has a 9 on the FMS, I'm assuming that that's correct. It's entirely possible he has a 14, 15, or 16. And that's part of the reason he's able to stay so good for so long. Now, there's one other part, is that it's very possible he's just an outlier, that he is one of those people that, with all of the problems that he has, he's still able to just give him the ball and he'll shoot it from anywhere. But the interesting thing about this outlier of one person who can defy all of the high risk and still be present in the game is that most organizations don't have a LeBron James, okay? And most organizations need to be supported by the depth of their players. And so you need to find the weakest people and bring them up so that the weakest is quite high. And what is important about that is this very, very important point. When you work in a market like a football league that is very, very competitive and your resources are stretched thin, the edge that you will have in a competitive market when you can't spend any more money, you can't buy any more players, the edge that you have is to keep your players on the pitch. And so when the movement philosophy is important, is because you say, we can't buy a Ronaldinho, we cannot buy a Fabinho as an attacking midfielder or a Virgil van Dijk as a centre back. We can't do that. So what we have to do is to keep our players on the pitch so that they can stay in training and develop their techniques and tactics. And the least time that they spend being injured or working on problems, the more time they can spend with the head coach. And now the head coach can do the things that he wants to do. So there's a few reasons why the movement philosophy is so important. And Rodrigo mentioned two of them is because we don't forget skills, but we can forget the core fundamentals. Okay, that's the first one. And the second one is because the great players build on a solid base or foundation of core fundamentals of movement, mindset, recovery, nutrition, and they respect this for a long period of time. But in the circumstance where you have players who don't do any of those two, because there are some circumstances where players do not do the fundamentals well, and yet they can still win a game. In those circumstances, most people don't have those champion players. And so the only advantage you have is to keep your less than champion players on the pitch so that they can spread the depth and be more consistent. And that's the advantage that most clubs will have. And I think, you know, you're able to demonstrate how to do that so well. So hopefully that answers your question about what I think, because I thought you did you answered it really well. One of the other questions I had is, and I'm going to share screen. Rod, if you could allow me to share screen.
I will pass over hosting to you. Okay, you can do it now.
So Roy, in 2000, let's go back. I don't know why I jumped that because I want this particular screen.
Actually, you had a question about that Munich index as well, Greg. So,
it'd be an injury classification. I don't actually know the Munich index, but I know the Orchard classification. So it might be similar.
So the Munich is just 1A, 1B. They are not structural, they're functional. So we DOMS, and 2A and 2B and 3A and 3B, those are structural injuries.
So you said in 2017, which is the yellow, that you had many more games than the previous 2 years. So what it tells me here is that, so you started to implement this system in 2015, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then after 1 year, when you are looking at all of the injuries, clearly there's a huge reduction in injuries in 2016, which is outstanding because that's what you want to see. So tell me, why do you think the injuries went up again in 2017?
So pretty much 1A, 1B, there is functional, there are DOMs, there are just like painful in muscle. That's pretty much because we have a lot of travels, pretty much a lot of flights, a lot of games away with 3 championships at the same time. So pretty much it's pretty much like FA Cup, Champions League, and the Premier League.
And regular Premier League. Yeah. Okay.
So it should be like, sometimes we were like 1 week out because we traveled in South America. So we play, and that's pretty much was the increasing on the 1A, 1B injuries. Yeah. So pretty much soreness, DOMs, and we rate that because we need to rate everything. We want to rate everything to see how we develop. And the other thing, I don't know if it's there, but we recover much faster. So
Tell me
that would
about
be the
tell me about 2A and 2B.
2A and 2B. Those are structural problems. So 2A and 2B, they're more related with the all one type of injury muscle. So we'd be like grade 1 strain,
Okay.
the all grade 1 strain. So that would be a number, and 2B, it would be just like moving to a grade 2. And 3A and 3B, that would be more like grade 3 actually. And 4, it would be avulsion of the muscle. So when you lose connection, everything with the muscle, that will be 4. And the thing that we have 4, that was pretty much the hardest injuries that we have, because they pull adductors. So it was one player, they pull the adductors, and the other player to pull the adductors. So that will be just like.
So, okay. So here's something that if I look at this and I want to make a simple statement, it appears that the increase in classification of injuries or categorization of injuries is mostly related to a very big increase in competition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So everything else, that all of the other systems that you did and all of the other training that you did is the same between 2016 and 2017, roughly the same?
Roughly the same, but it's just we need to consider that in 2015, we didn't have a lot of staff knowing all the system, and we have the staff for 2016 and 17. So that would be and pretty much we did Munich classification because that is going to UEFA. So UEFA, with Champions League and everything, they have relation with the club. So we have to categorize the injuries like this, because we want to see how we are in relation with Germany, Italy, England, that they travel a lot. So we want to see that it was reflected. And we don't have any problems to have 1A, 1B more. The big problems that we have, just like 2B, 3A, because that we know there are structurals, but at the same time, we see those with the system, they come in better. They come
better quicker.
That's my question. That was my question. If you saw because now
we have a system. Exactly, we have a system now, and so we can speed. I don't want to say speed up, but actually we go through all the stages that we have. So that was the clinical case where you start your movement pretty easy, and you start with the movement philosophy of return to play. So that was pretty much where you can have. I don't want to say sooner, but where you have when he's available and when he was like doing all the different assessment that we have, and you can go with the team. But so thinking on movement, thinking on the movement mindset, and not thinking on the injury per se. We have a structural injury, but we're thinking on movement with our injury. I don't want to say the biology caused that, but I will say the movement is, and the assessment of the movement is the stepping stone in a progression, so you can go back to the field.
So tissue injury healing times are well known. But what you're saying is when you got to the end of that time, because of the process that occurred, they were ready to go, rather than doing what they go backwards again.
You have biology from one, but you have movement mindset for the other. And everything that we target during that healing process, and everything we can move you during that healing process, is more related with everything that you have to do on the pitch, related with movement, not with soccer. So when you're ready to go, that's it.
Great.
I think there's a great summary here, which is that you cannot make something heal quicker. Nature will make it heal as quickly as it takes to make it heal, but you can definitely slow it down, right? So there are things that you can do as an individual to make the healing process worse. So the first thing we need to do is to say, get out of the way of nature. Okay, let nature take the healing process. And then secondly, regain as much function as possible, respecting the healing process, so that when the healing is finished, your function has already been restored and the structure of the tissue is already ready to tolerate all of the function that you have been building. Maybe what has been happening in 2016 and before that is that the tissue healing, it takes the same amount of time as every other year. But maybe in 2016 and 2015, maybe there is a rehabilitation or a strength process which is interfering with this healing process, and it's being delayed, right? And secondly, not only is it delayed, but there's the movement philosophy is not adequate to support that process, and so it takes longer again. And so I think there's a really important thing that says, yeah, it's going to take this long for the tissue to heal, but we can still do a great number of things so that when it's ready to tolerate this force, you are already supported with all of your process. Hey, I also noticed that in 2000, I'm going to share screen again. So in 2016 and 17, you have low numbers of people at different times of the year.
Yeah.
So is this because the players disappear? They go somewhere else?
It's because we have so much competition that during that month we couldn't measure again.
Okay.
So we have to jump into June, because when we have a lot of competition, that's why we're playing like Champions League. So we were away a lot of time, and that's is in relation with everything that I told you before. Just like we need to chase, but in this case, we couldn't have time to have an assessment, because actually we're playing Wednesday, Saturday, Monday, sometimes Thursday. So we were flying all the time, and we didn't have time to assess.
Yeah. Also, did you have a big change in the number of athletes between 2015 and 2017? Did you have new?
All the time. Yeah, all the time we have new players coming.
Yeah.
So
you have. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
That's where we have assessment. That's where we have assessment all the time, because sometimes we incorporate players in May, and we need to assess that guy, and that guy follows a different pattern. So he was doing FMS, post FMS, and he was introduction to the season training systems that we have, and we need to take care of that guy, because they usually overstressed calf, plantar fasciitis. They overstressed trying to make good keep hinge, and then we take to the pitch and we teach them movement mechanics, and they don't understand. So we need to take care of those guys. So usually we have those guys that come to the team. We need to assess and follow up, and sometimes we have spikes because like 3 players, they come and they trade, and they're just like boom, something from zero, a guy from 30 years old, and those guys just like pretty much red for me when they come and join.
So what's the special subgroup? You mentioned the special subgroup.
Yeah. So those guys are the guys that have a lot of asymmetries in the fundamental movement patterns.
Yeah.
Okay. The guys that move really poor, and I like to with those guys, I would break down with SFMA.
Yeah.
So those guys that at the same time that the team is training in the gym, or they doing like correctives for the team, they doing correctives 101.
Yeah.
Or they're doing pillar prep 101. Or it's the guys that were like with one PT or one strength coach with 3 players. They were just like super seeing all the time to make the best possible of the time resource that we have. So in 25 minutes, you're gonna do your special correctives. That's what we call, because actually that was like customized for you from FMS, SFMA, and more complementary like screening. And then we deliver. So those are the guys with special group, and are the guys that we will retest between the month and a half or month, depending on the competitions. So usually we give like 4 or 6 weeks, and there were like 2 times training. So it would be like 8 sessions or 12 sessions period. And we'll reassess again and see how those guys, because the priority is just like those guys pass to the group, to the general group, correct?
Okay, so if we look at the special subgroups, let me see. Oh, also I had, this is part of the same. Can you tell me, can you define what does it mean for Prof June and Prof October?
Professionals in June and professionals in October.
So what is the difference between this chart on the left and this chart on the right? Because both of them say June.
Yeah,
but the numbers are a little bit different.
16 and 17.
Oh,
16 gray, 17 not gray.
Okay.
And there was like no big changes.
But I understand why, because you have a very, 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 very low number of people in pain.
So exactly.
It's like saying there's no change, but we had 3%. That's nothing.
In 35 players, there's a lot, and 3% in 200 players, that is a lot.
Oh yeah, in China, you know this as well. We had 80% people, 80% red. No, not 80% in pain.
80.
So you can make a big difference when it's 80. It's hard to make a difference when you have 3. Okay, special subgroup. So the new subgroup increased the percentage of no pain compared to January. So this is good. This new subgroup has more people with no pain. Okay. In June, percentage of pain is decreasing. Very good. Percentage of pain is decreasing down here. It's also good. Okay. So this is important for me to understand. So we have 2016 here, 2017, and we have a little bit increase here, but I think we understand we have more football in 2017.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have different players. So did you have the opportunity to look at some footballers who was present in 2015 and still available 2017? Do you have any data for this player for over 3 years?
I think I have. There were the younger players, but those players that were younger, they didn't have so much competition. So they were like doing like local competition, but they don't were exposed to like international competition. So for them, their requirements, there is a professional soccer guy that I can follow that guy up, but that was pretty much that 1% like LeBron James, that he has a professional mindset. So that guy was like follow every to the detail. So that guy was like that 1%. There was that guy, and I can tell you there was another guy, and the other guy have more issues, and because besides it's like they have the age component, and that was like really comparing those guys. One of those guys last year, before last year, they just like he finished playing, and the other guy, that 1%, he keep playing.
So tell me, 2015, what is the result for the club in
2015 in the league? They qualified for one international competition for 2016, and in 2016 they qualified for the Champions League international competition. So that was the difference they had. For it would be like Euro Cup or Champions League. First year we qualified for Euro Cup, and we just like we were just like dequalified really easy.
So tell me about the results in the local competition in Brazil for 2015, 16, 17.
For 17, we finished 8, 10, 16, we finished between the first 6. That's what we have gained the chance to go to Champions League. And in 17, or don't remember.
Okay.
17. It's kind of crazy.
Do you have the opportunity to collect information on the expenditure, the financial cost of injuries and management of resources between this time?
No, but I can tell you pretty sure that the salary they pay again. So just like the salary is just like 30,000 US a month. The player keeps receiving that money. So they don't sign any contracts for leisure. If they have any injuries, they don't get paid, or they don't get profit depending on the games they play. So pretty much we have a lot of salary guys that if they have injury and they were like key players, they will keep the same. And I would put in a different environment or different setup. The big players, the hit players, they need to be on the pitch presence any cost. So that was just like beside the money they can cost, it was like a small team. We don't have like a huge team like in Brazil. So those key players, they need to be able pretty much all the time. So any resource that we have for regeneration, that's where I put regeneration mindset. The regeneration mindset that we used to have for them, that was like pretty hard, because beside the injury, they need to be able, because they were key players.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think in the future, one of the metrics that we will collect, one of the information that we will collect, and I say in the future, we have also done this in the past in other organizations, is you ask the accountant from the football club or the accountant from the organization to tell me how much money the organization is spending for the services of the medical staff. And can you tell me how much money you are spending for the services for the surgery and the rehabilitation and the insurance, medical insurance? And then you say, okay, can you tell me next year the same information? Can you tell me the same information the year after that? And you can start to look at the importance of the medical staff as an investment and not the cost of medical staff. Because you want to, I want to walk into an organization, and I want Rod and Rodrigo to walk into an organization and say, we can make your players safer. And you know what they look? They look at you like, I don't care. Just win. Just get me into the Champions League, okay? But so safer is important because then you can stay on the pitch, okay? And if you can stay on the pitch, you can be more efficient with fatigue management because you've got a higher training volume. Fatigue management is important, okay? But mostly you want to be successful at winning the game and then winning the championship. But sometimes we do not have the influence as physical preparation staff and support staff. We do not have the influence to the technical and tactical side of the game. I would say sometimes, I say 97.3% of the time, we have no influence on this because this is the job of the coach. But
I have one time, and it's great when you have.
Yeah, but we want to have this final statement which says, okay, I want to talk to the owner of the club. You say, hey, sir or madam, this year, because of the work that we did, we spend $20,000 less on the cost of your injured players. And so you think that you think that it's very expensive to keep physical therapy and medical staff, okay? But remember that if we save you $20,000, then this is an investment for you, and the investment is positive for you. So I think it's important in future that we look at the cost of injuries and demonstrate that we can reduce. And I think one of the very important things that you said, Rodrigo, is that even though the injuries went up in 2017, their recovery was quicker, which means that the amount of resources that you spend on that person with an injury is much, 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 much less than it was in 2015.
Can I just give a different way of looking at it?
Sure.
So because I've actually got a background as a chartered accountant, you're talking about resource allocation. And it may not actually be a problem if you spend more, if you can show that you're getting better results and that's bringing more into the team. So let's say, for example, you can show I've reduced surgeries, which might be a good thing, but I've had to hire a lot more strength and conditioning coaches, a lot more physical therapists and that sort of stuff to keep the team performing to this level. If you can show that resource allocation is still positive overall, that extra expenditure may not be a problem. In fact, it may actually be showing that's an investment, not an expense.
Yeah, and this is one of the weaknesses of the support staff is that they're not trained in the ability to demonstrate a return on investment. Everyone thinks, oh, the physio is here again. That's going to cost us more money. We have to get an extra strength coach. It's going to cost us more money. And they forget, whoa. We have a better performing team. You know, you have more volume in playing, and we have better ability to stay on the pitch. This is something that you have to recognize is an improvement. And so it's not expense, it has to be investment, and investment has to be demonstrated in results. So I think that's something that when we measure FMS and we measure SFMA, and Rodrigo puts a report to the club that says, this is the FMS protocol, the FMS profile for this player, and the SFMA profile for this player. I think we're going to have another category, which is in 2015, we spent uh, 300 hours working with this player, and it cost the club 300 hours times $50 an hour, and it cost $15,000 to look after this player. And then you have the next year. This year we only spent 150 hours with this player, so we have $7,500 of resources saved because we prepared this player well. And
Okay.
I think when you start,
I'm still going to throw another curly into that. Let's say that
please,
you had 10,000 that year that you spent on that player. Okay. The next year you spend $25,000 on that same player, but that was worth 200,000 in extra revenue. There's your investment. And genuine, you're spending that extra money because you might actually be throwing resources at your players that actually give a better result. And if we're always talking in terms of cost saving, I think we're losing the fact that there's two sides of the equation and you can pitch it either way depending on where things are going. So if you go in and you can see there's a lot of waste, then you can pitch the savings. If you go in and you see the players aren't performing to their full potential and that's costing a club revenue, you can pitch it that way instead. So you can say, yes, we're going to spend more, but give me this year or this 2 years. And if I can't show an increase in revenue, an increase in performance, then by all means, I haven't done my job.
Yeah.
And there is one more key and more important thing.
Okay, let's hear
it. The players were feeling much better. Yeah. And when you have someone and you ask them how you feel, and they say, man, I can feel that I can run freely. I feel that if someone wants to push me, they're not going to push me and they're not going to move me on the pitch. There is a plus. Yeah. Because now they believe. And if they believe, I can tell you from my own words, they're going to jump and defend you whatever it takes.
Yeah,
because they believe it. Yeah.
You know.
And we have some players that came from Italy that they don't even believe at the beginning, and they took time. And I know they took time because when I lived there still, but there are a few players from international and national teams. They were like, man, at the beginning, I didn't know what you were saying. I didn't know where it was the system. Everything was hurting me, but now I want to train it that way. And that was just like done. Money from one side, feeling of the player from the other, and I can see the shapes when they're running. Done.
Yeah, and I think when you said something during a presentation which says players will buy in to the philosophy if they understand what they are doing. And so what you said was, so I want them to ask me, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And if you don't ask me, then I'm going to explain what we are doing. But when you were saying this, I was thinking, well, people will buy in to the philosophy if they understand. Exactly. But more people will buy in if they feel good. Okay. Exactly. Because many people do not understand why you are doing this. And many players don't care. All they want to do is play with the football. But they will care that they feel good. And so it's so important that we also understand that when we educate the organization and when we educate the players, we have to take a step back and understand that it's very possible many people in this group don't care. And those that do care won't understand. But if they can, sometimes I've said this to football teams, hey, everybody, stop what you're doing for a moment. It's possible you don't care why we're doing this. It's possible you won't understand why we're doing this. But I need you to trust me, okay, that this is the right thing because it will make you feel better. And if you feel better, you can do what you want to do, which is play football. And most of the players, when they hear me say that, they think, okay, I don't care. I don't understand, but I'm going to trust you because you tell me we're going to feel better. If we feel better, I can play more football. And so when you do that, you have a very magical power to take someone from subconscious dysfunction and you have to bypass the other steps and you go all the way to subconscious function. They don't know why they do so well, but they know that they actually, they go all the way to conscious function or subconscious function because they say, I feel better and I move better and I don't really have to take the steps in between to understand why I move badly and then to try to consciously figure that out and then eventually transition to subconscious function. Sometimes if you take the movement philosophy approach and you say, just trust me, this is going to allow you to spend more time on the pitch. They'll say, okay, when you do that and you take the philosophy and the approach that Rodrigo has shown, you can bypass subconscious dysfunction, conscious dysfunction, conscious function to subconscious function. You can go from here to here and skip over the middle part. And when you do that, you're speaking to the emotions, you're speaking to the autonomic nervous system, you're speaking to the integration of the cortical system and the emotions and the gut and the heart, or the three different brains. And all the player feels is, I feel better. And that's important.
Agree, 100%.
Can I ask another question as well? And this is kind of going backwards a step. But 2015, 2016 compared to 2017, the numbers of games. So we know there were a lot more games at a much higher level in 2017. How did 2015 and 2016 compare to each other?
Oh, I would say more than 3%, because we start playing in past phases in, I would say, Champions League, in Copa Libertadores. Mm-hmm. So we have a plus from games there.
So you still
and the worst part in the case scenario, just like we have to fly more, and that's pretty disgusting and exhausting for the players.
Now, sorry, is that 2016 as well?
17, no, 16, no, 17.
So how did 2015 compare to 2016?
To 15 to 16, we travel a little, almost now. We travel inside Brazil. We didn't travel outside Brazil, just a few times, because we were relegated really fast from international competition. Okay. But in 2017, we stay in international competition, so we need to travel much more.
So I'm guessing my point there is, based on the stats that you've shown, if the guys got to the same level of competition, even without your interventions, based on what we've seen in 2015, their injury rates would have been through the roof. Because you've managed to the approach you've used has brought that injury rate back in line with 2015 at a much, much higher level of competition and much higher frequency of competition.
Yeah.
So you still show an important metric, even if the graphs don't kind of say that.
Yeah, exactly.
And the best thing is where it's really important. Sorry,
2018.
Continue.
Sorry, no, don't worry. 2018, we were champion. I wasn't there. But all the season that followed, the next year, champions.
Yeah, nice.
And that was amazing. And 2018, champions again.
And this is a really important point. Injury prevention is bullshit.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're running into other people,
So all it is identify the risk of injury, manage the risk of injury, so that you can keep the levels. Maybe you keep the levels exactly the same, like we saw from 2015 to 2017 is the same. But the risk of getting injured when you play many more games and you travel a lot, the risk is much, much higher. So if you can keep the injuries the same with a much higher risk,
exactly.
This is injury risk management. Yeah.
You want to create a perfect homeostasis, even if you travel a lot. Homeostasis of the body, mindset, and movement. You want region and not prevention, but just like your risk, keeping homeostasis in that green level. And that's the main thing. Even if I have to put you more stress because you travel, more autonomic stress, more tissue stress, more low stress, more GPS stress, I keep homeostasis in your body, in your brain, and in your output. And that is the main thing of a movement philosophy system.
And I think also, if the injuries are the same number, but your recovery from injury is quicker, then we don't have an injury prevention system at all. And I have said this for many years, there's no such thing as an injury prevention system when you play elite competition. Everyone will get injured, everyone will get some pain, everyone will get sore, but that's not the reason that we do these things. It's not for injury prevention. It's for injury risk management, and it's for acceleration of recovery from injury so that you can gain a competitive advantage. So what's the question? What's the competitive advantage? In a very, very competitive market, the advantage is that you put more players on the field than the other teams. Or if everyone has the same injuries, our advantage is they will recover from injuries quicker than the rest of the competition. So there's no such thing as injury prevention. I think what you have is a very important role to identify the risk of injury and to address those risk factors. And I think then you can look at your data and say, when we address those risk factors, we do not get injured as much and we do not get injured as often. It's the same thing, but we recover from injury quicker. And we saw data from Lewis Mosquita's Masterclass, which says that strength has a strong relationship to injury prevalence. Okay, so the more strong you are, then the less likely you are to get injured. But that does not mean that you do not get injured. It just means that you don't get injured as often. And so injuries will still happen. It's just that maybe you only get injured once this year instead of 3 times. And what's important is that Lewis is a big student and a big practitioner for movement philosophy as well. And why his presentation says, yes, it's important to be strong, but you do not have to be strong and only strong. You have to have many other components. And the other components is the movement philosophy, so you can recover quickly when you do get injured. So, yeah.
He also showed really important.
That's what I'm saying. Sorry, that's what I'm saying. Also, just like we have movement health, movement performance, because inside movement performance is movement strength performance.
Yeah,
that's one.
Yeah. Louise also showed too that there's a cut point for strength, and once you start to try and get beyond that, you're actually allocating resources to the wrong thing, and it doesn't actually provide more injury prevention anymore anyway.
And it doesn't change your performance. We saw that in his example of an elite sprinter who got very, very strong, and then she spent the next 4-year cycle. She got very, very strong, and she achieved her best athletic success. So she spent the next 4-year cycle trying to improve her strength even more. And this took too much time away from her task of actually being an athlete, and her success went down. So yes, strength is important. No one disregards that. But what is most important is your recovery. Mark Verstegen has said this, recovery could be the limiting factor in performance.
Exactly. All the time.
Brandon Marcello has a PhD as a performance strategist. He says that pre-recovery could be the limiting factor for performance. And pre-recovery for him means sleep and nutrition, the things that you do before training. Okay. And Mark Verstegen says, the founder of Exos, says that recovery is the most limiting factor for performance. And what's interesting about this is that you cannot do pre-recovery when you're deep in a competition. So when you're training, so when Rodrigo has the players on the field and he has the players in the gym, you cannot sleep, and nutrition is not really playing a role in the gym and on the pitch except for water. But what you can do is you can move well and manage your autonomic nervous system through preparation in training, so that when you train, you actually recover during the training session. So I think this movement philosophy supports recovery when you're training hard, and that manages fatigue.
Absolutely. Manages that accumulative fatigue too, which is the big thing.
Yeah, because you're staying on the pitch more often. And
yeah.
And Tim Gabbett says it very well. High training load is protective of injury. We want to keep people training a lot, but you can't train a lot if you're sore, and if you take a long time to recover from soreness, and if you have a large number of asymmetries and it increases your risk of getting injured, then you can't train a lot. Sometimes they look at physios or osteopaths or other physical preparation support staff, and they say, if you end up in the physio, we can't train. And it's our responsibility as a profession to say, no, we want you to train. We want you to train a lot.
We don't want you to train the bit you've injured. The bits that you do, we want you to do.
One of the big changes that didn't happen like wow, but it started to happen is sometimes when players get injury, they thought they go and throw out themselves into a treatment table. And right now it's just like, you go into a treatment table, but then you go to the floor and you start to move yourself.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That's what I see all the time, the movement mindset. Because yeah, you can do some modalities or something that you want to do on a treatment table, but then you go down and you start to move day 0, day 2, or day 1, because the movement is the thing that's going to get you back into the pitch and better, and sometimes sooner, or sometimes just like one time a year. So that was just like what the movement is really important all the time.
And you can create, like you said, you can create energy system development through movement, and you apply the linear and the multi-directional movement so that you stress the fascial systems so that it's prepared for the capacity that you challenge the body with later on. So, you know, and Lance Walker talks about it in his speed masterclass, is that, you know, there's things that you can do early on from a rehab point of view with a hamstring injury that allows you to continue to stress the movement patterns. So, yeah,
that was kind of funny, because when I was in Altis, I asked Dan Paff and Storm Mamila, how do you rehab? And it's just like, here, this is a living lab. Train in a gym, this is physio. No, here. Yeah, because hamstring learn in the way that you retrain the central nervous system, how you fatigue the autonomic nervous system, and how you teach the body to tolerate load with good mechanics. So that was pretty much related with what Lance says.
I had another question. So I'm going to share the screen again. Rodrigo, tell me, what is in the secondary screen?
Secondary screen.
I see that you're checking for red flags that maybe you do not check in the FMS. But what else can you check in the secondary screen that you do not pick up in the FMS?
So pretty much secondary screen, they want to check monomuscle testing.
I see. Okay.
Okay, and they want to see if we want monomuscle testing, you have big asymmetries from strength, adductors, abductors, quads, hamstring, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty much, then you have the SFMA and clinical exams, and then you have from the other side, you want to recheck some post FMS. There is a mix between top tier, it's a mix between upper quarter and lower quarter, and also it's just like the monomuscle testing stuff there.
I understand. Okay. So I want to, okay, that's fine. And I could dive deeper into that if we have time. Because I know that the upper quarter functional exam and the lower quarter functional exam, which you mentioned a lot, it's not very familiar to a lot of people. But what he is talking about is the examination protocols that Exos uses in their performance therapy.
You've told me that before, actually. Yeah.
Education. And I often think that, can we get more information from the upper quarter functional exam and the lower quarter functional exam that we did not already arrive at from SFMA breakouts and local biomechanical examination? And I think the answer is, I'm not sure. And I think that if you need to get a little bit more clarity, the lower quarter functional exam and the upper quarter functional exam allows you to describe something in a reproducible way. And I think the manual muscle testing doesn't always give me more information, but there are circumstances where I look at someone who does not have clear signs of joint mobility dysfunction. They do not have clear signs of stability or motor control dysfunction. They do not have clear signs of accessory joint or local biomechanical field. They do not have clear signs of lymphatic system dysfunction or visceral dysfunction. And sometimes I get the feeling and I think, I want to check your iliopsoas manual muscle testing. And so I do a manual muscle test on hip flexion above 90 degrees between the left and the right side. And we suddenly find that, we have a 6 or 7% asymmetry in muscle strength, a pure capacity of muscle strength in the iliopsoas on one side compared to the other. Now, what we just demonstrate is a motor control dysfunction at capacity.
Absolutely.
But you don't always find motor control dysfunction at capacity when you're doing lower level testing. And sometimes you do need to do this manual muscle testing to capacity to reveal what is really an SMCD or a stability motor
SMCD,
control dysfunction.
it's motor control.
And of course, there is some research that is quite strong that says if you have asymmetries between hip abductors and hip adductors, it's a risk factor for groin pain. And we know that football has big stresses across the pelvis and the hip, and groin pain is traditionally one of those injuries that's common in football. And if you can look at all of the risk factors, which includes asymmetries between abduction and adduction, it takes a very small amount of time to do a manual muscle test and grade this dysfunction. So that was my question, was what is the different, what's the extra things in the secondary screen? So that answers that question. Yeah, thank you.
Rodrigo, do you use upper and lower body motor control screens like the YBT, that sort of thing as well?
I try to incorporate it, just the anterior reach.
Mm-hmm.
There is the one that give you more information, but we were using just a little bit. They didn't incorporate it. I was using it to show them. Actually, I took a white balance test to show them, and I don't know what they did after when I go away. But I was trying to incorporate that because I think it's just like for acceleration, deceleration, change of direction mechanics, anterior reach from white balance test is just like to simplify everything and to give not so much time and best information. I was trying to teach them that. So we were doing like ankle mobility tests with inclinometers, and I want to correlate that with anterior reach, kind of in the middle of the way. We couldn't incorporate it.
And I think Rodrigo was there before the fundamental capacity screen, the FCS, before this was released. I show them when I went to the States, and then I go back and I'll show them everything. So they were like, wow, but then I go away and we never get to incorporate that into the team setting.
It's actually a pretty cool screen because in mixed martial arts where you got to generate a lot of power off your back and on the ground, I've used that to show people how their asymmetries determine which side they choose to do their techniques from. So they might only want to swing out of something to the right and they can't swing out of a position to the left to get out of a hold down, for example. And when you fix up that asymmetry, you show them that it was never a skill-based thing. It was always motor control and how you were processing things. So then they shift just as easily from one side to the other. But they always thought it was a skill-based thing, not a motor control or coordination thing.
Nice.
Well, I'm out of questions.
Okay.
I think you've covered everything for me too, Greg, because mostly I was interested in the trends of those graphs as well.
Thanks.
And the only thing I put on there, Greg, is that we'll do a note on, just as we do the editing, of what the FMS scores mean, because people are going to need to know that. Because you read the 1s and 2s, and that's not something that everyone watching this will necessarily know. Yeah. So Champion Rodrigo, thank you so much for the masterclass. There was many people who said we cannot wait for this one because they want to see the practical application. So thanks again for your expertise and for sharing.
And I have to send you the masterclass. I don't know where you asked me to say.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to. How is it?
We want you to say there are no ordinary moments in a masterclass.
Don't say it yet. Don't say it yet. What we'll do is, I think I'm recording, so I'll just go to speaker view, so his whole face comes up with that. Greg, just do the same in case it's still picking up yours as the host. So go to speaker view, and when you say it now, Rodrigo.
Wait a minute. I'm going to make you host, right?
Okay.
There is no ordinary moments in a masterclass. That's it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Let's say it with a bit more conviction this time.
No, I want to rephrase just like.
I'm just teasing you.
Okay, Rod. So who's on the big screen now? You or?
You are, because you're talking.
So now
make Rodrigo spotlight. Yeah.
Okay. I'm talking. Let me talk.
Go for it.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
It's me. Okay. So there's no ordinary moments in a masterclass.
Perfect.
Nice. We can capture that.
But I can do it.
Thank you, brother.
I'm going to send you one more from my phone.
Did you get the one that I did from the hospital bed?
I lost it.
Oh, no. Okay.
I can't find it on my WhatsApp or a text message.
I'll have to see if I've still got it, and I'll send it through.
Okay. So Rodrigo wants to do another one. Go again.
Okay, hang on. I got to speak of you again.
I was thinking that there is no ordinary moments in a masterclass. Thank you, guys.
All right, champion, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, man. I'm going to eat with Luciana. She's going to kill me.
Okay. Say
Guys,
apologize for
I
us.
leave you.
Okay.
I say, big kiss to you guys. Big hug. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Greg, there was a moment there where I was had to get to my phone because I had someone coming around to pick some stuff up, and they sent me a message saying that, and I'm like, no, don't come around now. And that's when I was looking down at my phone.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. Hey, I think his QuickTime movie is going to be so easy to edit. Because having watched it, I was like, just cut it off for 20 minutes. Cut it off for 20 minutes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. And all I was thinking was, when we get to the FMS bit where he talks about scores with the graphs, we just got to say, here's what the scores are. That's all they need to know.
Yeah, I think you could probably do a screenshot from the latest manual of it. Just insert it and say, hey, this is from the FMS course. This is the scoring. For more information, go to, and then just type in a link there.
Functionalmovement.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
All right. I've got to go and clean the house. I'm on house cleaning duty today.
Okay. So I can easily chop this up. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, thanks for doing that. And then that gives us a bit of breathing space on doing mine for. I might even do that probably tomorrow. I'm on house cleaning duty now. I reckon this afternoon I can just finalise everything that I need to do, and if it suited you tomorrow, we could record mine.
It had to be really late tomorrow afternoon, like sort of almost evening. The reason is
that's fine. We can do Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, because Volko, the guy, the UFC guy down the coast.
Yeah.
He's doing another title fight. Okay,
that's fine. So maybe Monday or Tuesday. And Wednesday wouldn't be it has to be the latest at Wednesday, because then it's got to be cut up and loaded up on Thursday.
I can do it Monday, no problem at all.
Okay.
And so what's happening with Phil and Jenna? Actually, I don't need to record this anymore. Let's just turn this off.